Welcome to a special broadcast of the Adjuster Advantage, EagleView's Claims DNA in Action. Today, we're joined by Jenna Kinsman, Vice President of EagleView's insurance business, to explore how aerial imagery and data solutions are revolutionizing the claims adjustment process. With her extensive background in property claims and expertise in insurtech, Jenna offers valuable insights on streamlining workflows and enhancing customer experiences. Stay tuned as we delve into how EagleView is empowering adjusters to achieve peak performance. Jenna, welcome to the broadcast. It is great to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Jenna, my understanding is that you used to be a claims adjuster, which gives you a unique affinity for the complexities of this role. Would that be understating it, or is that accurate?
That would be accurate. I actually started with Farmers Insurance here in Grand Rapids as a property adjuster, as my proverbial foot in the door. So it gives you a unique perspective, because I think that as you make your way through other roles that you're going to have in your career, having that baseline understanding of what it means to actually deliver the promise that the policy actually provides is an integral part of understanding the whole entire ecosystem from front to finish, so to speak.
So the basic underlying experience is something you draw from. Are there other facets of your experiences you draw from to inform your current position?
Yeah, so it was an interesting journey. I wanted to be an actuary when I grew up. So one of the things that I decided to do was actually start as an adjuster so I could work my way over to the actuarial department within Farmers Insurance. Was an adjuster for about 2.5 years and actually did go over to the product management side of the house and worked very closely with actuaries at that point in time. And what was really fascinating was I understood how the policy language was being applied on the claim side. And that allowed us to actually make more informed product decisions and policy decisions and also rating decisions so we could actually become more profitable as a business unit. So I was responsible for about 6 states within the Midwest. And as anybody can say who's either done adjusting in the Midwest or has been responsible for managing the profitability of their insurance lines within the Midwest, you'll certainly understand that wind and hail are the predominant perils that really impact your profitability within those states. And one of the things that I knew as an adjuster is that a lot of insurers will just sit there and play what I call the wind-hail lottery. So essentially just waiting for a hailstorm or a windstorm to come through that will provide enough damage to their house for their insurance company to actually warrant a full replacement of it. So just having an underlying understanding of those abilities and also understanding that the adjusters are in such a situation where they're really bound by the specificity of the policy language. And if there's any nuance to that policy language, the benefit will always go to the insured. So the adjuster's perspective is you're looking for coverage, you're looking for ways to actually pay that claim. You can't invent ways to pay that claim. So when you're actually on the product side, making sure that you are creating policy language that allows the adjusters to apply that language in the way that you intend it to for your overall profitability is also another key part that I've really taken into other aspects of my career.
Thanks, Jenna. I think you started to hint at this when you talked about the wind-hail lottery, but inaccurate roof age data. Can you talk to us about the financial impacts of inaccurate roof age data? How big of an impact can it be having on a carrier's loss ratio?
Yeah. So to answer very succinctly, it really has a big impact. This roof issue that we've been talking about, carriers have been grappling with for years. And I would say within the last decade and a half, since I was really in this seat that I'm talking about, it's gotten progressively worse because we have a lot of things that are happening within, the macroeconomic environment. We have storm chasers. We have a rising cost of inflation. There's a lot of things that are actually happening that make this problem even worse than what it was back then. But just to really summarize, what I had to do back then in order to maintain profitability within these states was I had to effectively take 15% rate increases every single year across the entire book of business because we had a subset of bad actors who were just letting their roofs grow old and then playing that wind-hail lottery. So then that whole entire pool ends up paying for these bad actors within that system. So what we did at the time was we actually created the ACV roof endorsement. And we implemented it within these six states. And what that meant was we would only pay for replacement costs if the age of the roof was less than 15 years old. We knew at the time that about 92% of all policyholders didn't actually know their age of their roof, because you just don't unless you've replaced it yourself or it was a new build. These things are really hard to determine, and there's not really a great way of looking at the roof. There's no expert out there that can look at any given roof and actually be able to tell you what the age is. Now, we can get close, but certainly we can't know with any sort of precision what that is. So as an adjuster, what I would do, and I think what the larger adjuster community was also doing as well, is when you're out there at that loss site and you're actually going to apply the depreciation, you would ask the policyholder, hey, how old is your roof? And they would say, well, I don't know, because 92% of the time they didn't know. And then the next best question to ask was, well, how long have you been in the home? And they would say 8 years. And I would go, good enough for me. We're going to put 8 years as the age of this roof. And that's how we would apply depreciation. So knowing that that was the way that things were actually applied, we actually developed this policy language to say that the onus was on the insured to prove that the roof was less than 15 years old. So now that shifts the dynamic, because the adjusters aren't in a position to essentially prove what the age of the roof was. And we put that onus on the actual insured. And what that allowed us to do at Farmers Insurance was actually not take those 15% rate increases across every single policyholder every single year as the result of some of these bad actors. We could really, with precision, target those bad actors and allow those payments to be much less than what they would be, because it's not really owed by the policy. The policy is not a wear and tear kind of policy. You're not supposed to use it for when things get old. This is kind of your replacement policy, no matter how many years you've been paying for insurance. It's really for those specific events that do cause unprecedented damage that are truly unexpected.
So the lack of, I was going to ask you about, why it's so difficult for insurance carriers to find accurate roof age data. You mentioned basically they're not working with readily available, accurate information. Is there anything else that contributes to that? Or is that the main issue? Like just that insureds don't know?
The insureds don't know. It's really hard to tell. There's not a technology or a tool or a system where you can just take a photo and say, yep, this is the age, goes back and, run wonderful AI. So the next best thing that EagleView actually has a unique advantage is we actually have imagery going back over 20 years for pretty much any given geographic location. And since we have that historical imagery, what we can do is we can actually apply technology onto that, and we can tell when a change has been made. So if we capture this in 2014, and then we went ahead and captured that same home in 2015, and we notice that there's been a change to that roof, now we've got it narrowed down to this roof is about 10 years old at this point in time. So, and then we also have that evidence. So when we talk about, nobody really knows what the age of the roof is. And even if we're guessing, we're really guessing without a complete picture, and we don't really have any evidence or data to go off of. Now what we have is we have 2 date and time stamped photos that clearly outline the differences from there. And then we can actually say, hey, here's the facts that we have. And now we can start to negotiate within the facts, right? Versus before, where it's kind of blindly guessing at what might have happened to that home at some point in time with the previous owner. Now we have definitive information that can help guide these conversations and really take the argument out of it, because an adjuster doesn't want to argue with a policyholder. An adjuster wants to pay as much as they can within that bounds of that policy. So this allows them to make sure that they're applying that with precision and getting that customer the exact amount of money that they're owed for their loss.
So the data sources you're using to calculate a roof's age are the different time-stamped and date-stamped photos you have. Is that the main thing you use to, calculate? Is that the process you use to calculate a roof's age, or are there other methodologies, or is that the main?
Yeah, so we also do, one of the things that I think is pretty well known in the industry is that permit data is wildly inconsistent. So the requirements for permits varies wildly by geographic location, by county, by city, by state. So all of that information is something that the industry has been craving to use for quite some time, but hasn't really figured out a way to do it. So what we do is we'll actually supplement our imagery process with the permitting information where it's available. And we find about 20% of the time we're able to get pretty good building permit information. And then there's about 10% of the time where it does default to the age of the home, because we do have new builds that are coming up, especially with housing shortage. Since 2019, we do have new builds kind of coming up as fast as essentially they can be built. So there's kind of 3 prongs to this, where we do have imagery for the majority of the roofs. We do have about 10% of the time where it's the age of the home, because that's really the ones that are popping up here within the last 5 years or so. Supplemented with imagery just to make sure that no changes have happened. It's unfortunately, if there was a new build in Los Angeles in the last 5 years, that's kind of a moot point at this point, because we had such a drastic wildfire peril that had gone through there just this last January. And then building permits too. So we're really triangulating all three of those to get the most accurate snapshot of really what is the age of that roof. So then claims adjusters now can apply this with confidence and be able to apply that policy language with actual facts, rather than just kind of taking a guess and seeing what feels right in the moment.
So you probably gave me, I think you just gave me a few, but in terms of what you're hearing from claims adjusters and insurance carriers, can you tell me some of the current challenges you're hearing from them? And are they doing anything besides the scope of what you're doing to improve the claims process themselves? Or are you pretty much, providing the majority of the solutions for your technology?
So I think, when we're looking at the claims process today, and there's a lot of buzzwords, I think we all want to get to straight through processing. I actually don't hear that as much anymore. And I'm really glad, because it's one of those buzzwords that it's like, well, what does it mean? Like, what are we doing here? Are we actually able to do this? And I think the answer is we're not really comfortable doing that all that much. So I'm glad that that's kind of not our North Star at this point. But there are many ways for us to actually get better with data. And what I mean by that is the more you know about a property up front, the more streamlined your triage process can be of where that actual claim gets assigned. So a couple of other data points to give you. So since we have all of this information, think of our aerial imagery as like the base layer. And then we have about 150 data points that live on top of that base layer of imagery that we can extract, we can accumulate, we can make analytics on. But on a claim-by-claim basis, we now have available about 150 different data attributes that anybody can have access to in order to make better decisions on how to handle that claim. So a couple of data points that are really important. It's very important to know the predominant pitch. Is the adjuster even allowed to get on that roof? Is it too steep for them to get on, or do they have to call a ladder assist partner because they're steep and high certified? What's the minimum eave height? Can your ladder actually even reach the eave of that roof so you can get up there and inspect? Those things are also very important. You might have to call some other resources or bring a different ladder out to the lost site. Are there solar panels? Is there a fence? Are you going to have access issues? Is there a beware of dog sign? Those things are certainly important, because you need to know what it is that you're getting into. Because my credo is there's always going to be surprises in any given claim. Every claim has an Easter egg hidden in it somewhere that you just didn't anticipate when you had received that file. But these are the things that you can control, and these are the things that don't have to surprise you when you get out there on site. So if we can empower our adjusters to have all of this information out on site, and even imagery of that structure before they go out there, now we can start to determine, how long is this going to take me to inspect? Do I have to be careful with how I plan the rest of my day? This is a 4,000 square foot roof. Like these, it's completely complex. We've got to do our hail hits on all these different facets. There's a lot of different things that go into the calculus of what it's going to take to inspect that claim. So if we can give them all of the inputs to that equation, then they can determine, how to plan their day a little bit better. And all of those mini efficiencies that we give on a claim by claim basis really add up on a week by week basis, on a year by year basis. But what that translates into is a better customer experience. Because if we show up as adjusters in this space and we show up prepared and we have all the equipment that we need, we know exactly what it is that we're getting into, and we even so much have the measurements so we can write that estimate while we're out there on site and give them that check or issue that EFT right there in front of them, that policyholder feels taken care of, and they're not put into this infinite loop of, I'll call you tomorrow, and you just hope and pray that they remember to call you and that you can take the call when they do. So there's a lot of things that this unpacks, and just the power of having all that information up front is what truly sets the adjusters who use EagleView apart from the rest of the industry, because now it goes from wondering about what's going to be happening to having definitive answers and getting to those exact outcomes right there within that one site visit.
Well, I was going to ask you, with 150 data points, unforeseen Easter egg, mitigation, all that stuff, what are you hearing from claims adjusters? Like, what are the maybe one or two things they're telling you or you're getting feedback on, saying, because of this, you make my life easier every job, every site. Like, what are a couple of the thank yous you're getting from claims adjusters in terms of what you offer?
It's really incredible. So my whole sales team was in Dallas just this last week because I put everybody through a little mini adjuster boot camp, because I don't think that we can do what we do without really understanding what it is that our customers go through on a daily basis. And one of the resounding things that we heard from that is we are truly saving lives because we are preventing the adjusters from having to go up on those roofs and actually have to hand measure these roofs. And that really changed the game, 15 years ago. And I was an adjuster when EagleView actually came out, and it was life-changing for me because and it really comes down to two things: safety, which you really can't put a dollar amount on. And truly, if anybody will say, like, this does save lives. The less time you're actually on a roof, the less time you have to actually have an accident on that roof and have it end in a bad way. But the other thing is just the time saving. So, and it's not just the measurement of those roofs that really saves the time. It's that actual sketch that you're getting within Xactimate or within Cotality, within Estimate, that really saves all that time. So we had a couple of trainers last week. We put up a really complex roof on the screen and we said, hey, if you were to hand sketch this, how long would it take you? And he said, and this is a manager who had decades of experience, and he said that would take me 5 hours to hand sketch within Xactimate. And like, how profound is that? Like, there is not one other technology out there that in one fell swoop increase the safety of adjusters out there, and then secondly, save that amount of time on a claim by claim basis. And the fact that you can have that before you go out to even do your inspection is just something that I think that since it's been around a while, we don't think that it's technology anymore, but it truly was revolutionary for the time. We created the space, we created this ability for adjusters, and we continue to innovate on that and improve the accuracy. So now we just had a recent study done where we're 98.77% accurate. I mean, I couldn't do that with hand measurements as an adjuster. So these are truly the ways that we're changing the game, providing efficiencies. And roof measurements is not something that you ever have to argue about in a supplement with a contractor. Plenty of other things to argue about, but we're not going to argue about these roof measurements anymore because we are the gold standard for accuracy.
Well, I'm not a claims adjuster, but I feel like I should thank you profusely for all you do for the claims adjuster community. So that's fantastic. And you mentioned the study, how your roof measurements are accurate to 98.77%. Can you talk about that? Like, how did you attain such a amazing metric through that, please?
Yeah, so we've been the only ones who've been doing it for as long as we've been doing it. So really, within that process, we have the ability and we have the luxury of the time that we've invested in this to be constantly improving on it. And if you think about 98.77%, that's within about 2.5 inches. And I know what 2.5 inches is. So this isn't really kind of a grand, lofty accuracy statement. Like, this truly comes down to, you can expect to be within a couple inches on any given eave length, on any given line length across the whole entire structure. And that really adds up. I mean, if we're talking about each square is about $450, imagine what that equates to across hundreds of thousands of roof claims that you're going to be encountering on an annual basis as a carrier. So inches matter, truly, when we're talking about, being the most accurate with measurements, because we owe what we owe, and, no more, no less. And we want to make sure that we're giving the customer as much as they're owed as well. We don't want to be under measuring these by any means. And we don't want to be over measuring them at all, because, either way, you really have it's a bad situation either way. We are 100% in it for the homeowner. So we're not here to service the contractor. We're not here to service the insurance carrier. We do service both of them. They're both of our customers, but what we really want is the best outcome for that homeowner.
Oh, absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. So we talked about, what the feedback, what you're getting from claims adjusters in terms of, you made my life easier. Thank you very much. What about your workflow? I know you want to make a big difference in their professional lives, their safety, their daily lives. So besides what they're thanking you for, what about the workflow of EagleView from your perspective is what you're trying to make sure that that's helping the claims adjusters, besides what they're telling you, what are you taking care of so they don't even notice the greatness of the workflow?
What I really love is, we're on this pathway right now of really trying to enable a virtual adjusting experience for claims. So what can we handle from the desk? What don't we have to send folks out on? And there's certainly a couple of ways to do that, but there are some areas where we're just not going to be able to do that. And that is really in the case of hail claims specifically. It takes a trained eye to be able to go up on a roof and actually identify what hail claims are. But the beautiful part is we actually provide and enable a virtual experience that's completely invisible to the policyholder. So in the background, essentially, we have automations in place with Xactimate and Cotality as well. So essentially, these roof reports can actually be ordered before anybody even has to hit a button, or an adjuster could just simply hit a button and they can get that roof report from the comfort of their desk before they go out there and have to be, nowadays, we were just in Texas, 95-degree heat. Every minute you're out in the weather certainly matters. And what they get to concentrate on is the inspection. So there is not one other aspect of the entire claims process that is more important than the inspection. So my other slogan is protect the inspection. Let's allow the adjuster to pay attention to what truly matters. They're really creating a narrative of what's going on with that house, what happened to that house. They need to be concentrating as they're doing their walk around of exactly what it is that's going to be covered within this loss. What are they seeing? Are they seeing hail damage around the siding? All of those pieces of information are truly important before they get up on that roof and actually do that inspection. So let's protect this inspection. Let's prevent one less thing from encroaching on their workflow. And let's make sure that they have everything that they need before they go out to the loss site. So this isn't just one more thing they need to think about while they're out there. So my call to the industry is, if you're going to add one more step to the process, make sure you're removing at least two on the other side of it. Because we can't be adding things to this process and putting more and more tasks on the adjuster's plate, when we really should be taking things away from them so they can concentrate on that policyholder in that moment and making sure that they're setting the appropriate expectations. They're putting together what makes sense for the narrative of that claim. They're essentially detectives and lawyers kind of all balled into one, because they have to understand exactly what happened. Was it hail? Was it something else? Was it wear and tear? And you also have to make sure that you're documenting your claim file in such a way that if it were ever to be called in question, that you have all the evidence there to support the decisions that you've made. So that's a lot to be put on one single person within the process. So that's why I say protect the inspection. If you're going to add something to it, you have to take away two other things. But why not just make it easy? And this is something that they can actually do. Order it while they're planning their day for the next day. They're going to have it when they get out there. They're going to be able to create that estimate for that policyholder. And we know that policyholder experience skyrockets if we're actually creating that estimate and settling those claims right there on site.
That's amazing. And for the second half of 2025, I could guess some new stuff coming from EagleView. Maybe instead of mini boot camps, maxi boot camps, or a benchmark result of 99.11. Just keep edging it up. But from your point of view, for the second half of 2025, what can we expect from EagleView? What cool new things are coming down the pike?
The most exciting thing is that we're coming out with is we previously had an experience where about call it 5 to 8% of the time, there were situations where we weren't able to get a good enough image of that property that we had taken in the past to actually be able to complete that sketch within Xactimate. We've actually solved that. So our internal engineers have been busting their buns for the last 6 months because we have a solve. And what this will basically allow us to do is now for those edge cases of about 5 to 8% of the time where those sketches weren't getting produced into Xactimate or into Cotality, we will now be fulfilling 100% of those sketches. So we go from, servicing the majority, and the vast majority, you would get an A- for your performance on that. But now we're going to ace it. We're going to get 100% fulfillment rate, and we're actually going to be able to fulfill all of those requests that come to us. So then what this provides for our adjusters is more consistency within their workflow, less exceptions to, hey, this situation happened, I have to do something else now within this process, and allows them to be able to rely on us for all of their needs and not provide, this poor experience that might happen some subset of the time. So I'm really excited because I think this changes the game for our adjusters and just allows them to get more of what they love from EagleView more consistently and across all their claims that they use us for.
So 2025, we're going to see strict adherence to fundamentals continuing, but with innovation and amazingness continuing to be sprinkled throughout the process.
Yes.
Sounds great.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, Jenna, is there anything else you'd like to add, or just want to make sure that we haven't missed anything in terms of, well, we've got you here?
No, we've covered it all. Thanks so much for the conversation. It's been so much fun.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you being here. This concludes our special episode of the Adjuster Advantage, EagleView's Claims DNA in Action. And again, a big profuse thank you to Jenna Kinsman for sharing her experience and her expertise on optimizing the claims process through innovative technology and data solutions. To discover more about EagleView's offerings, visit EagleView.com. Thank you all for tuning in, and we look forward to bringing you more insights from the insurance world next time. Have a great day, everyone.